Hi guys, welcome to our daily encounter. In Lamentations chapter 4, in verse 1, it starts like this. It says, "How dark the gold has become, how the pure gold has changed." And there, he's alluding to perhaps the gold of the temple that was once beautiful, once immaculate, and now it had become tainted. It had become perhaps dusty, dirty, or maybe even blackened by the fires of Babylon. But he's not just mentioning the literal gold in the temple. He's also using this as a figure of speech to talk about the people of Jerusalem, as verse 2 goes on to say. And that actually even follows with the rest of the chapter and the subject there contained within. In Jerusalem, the people who were fancy, the people who were rich, are now desolate. Also, and that's found in verse 5, the prophets and the priests are now shed in the midst are wandering around like blind in the streets and are defiled with blood. Verse 14 said, "No one will touch their garments. Depart, unclean, they cry of themselves. Depart, depart, do not touch." So they fled and wandered. These people who were holy, these priests and the prophets who people thought were so holy and so close to God, now they're wandering around like blind people. They're covered in blood. They're unclean. They're the complete opposite. And that kind of follows through with the rest of the chapter in what it's talking about, this contrast between what Jerusalem was like before, or at least the people of Jerusalem were like before, and then what they were during the judgment that God had brought upon them through Babylon, and the great change that took place. Truly, the gold had become darkened. And judgment kind of does that. You know, before the judgment, as we talk about the final judgment, here in this world, there's a lot of people who look very fancy and are living the good life. They seem to be untainted. They seem to be unchallenged. They seem to be unaffected by hardship and difficulty. And perhaps sometimes we look at them and maybe become envious, especially when we look at our own lives and we see what difficulties we're experiencing. Jeremiah might have thought the same thing. You know, Jeremiah had a rough life. While everyone else was living it up and having a good time, Jeremiah was preaching judgment and was getting ridiculed and mistreated and was not living a very luxurious life. But when the judgment came, then the true condition of the people shone forth. And the same thing would be true with the final judgment. Maybe we do look up to these people who are rich, famous, powerful, and seem to be untouched by hardship. But judgment has a way of changing things. I'm reminded of the rich man and Lazarus, the parable that Jesus told, where Lazarus was poor. The rich man was really extravagant and living it up and wouldn't even let Lazarus eat the crumbs off of his table. But when both of them died, it was actually Lazarus who was in Abraham's bosom, and it was the rich man who was in torment. So things had completely turned around. And judgment has a way of doing that. And we need to remember that. You know, yeah, it may be hard for us now as we're trying to serve the Lord, as we're trying to be honest, good people. And maybe sometimes that doesn't work out very well for us in our circumstances. Maybe there's times when we think that we might be better off not being Jesus followers. And we perhaps wish we were more like the world and the success that they seem to have. Just remember that in the judgment, we're going to be glad that we were serving the Lord, especially when we see those that were well esteemed, that people looked up to, them being really not in a good situation. Revelations talks about those whose names are not written in the book of life. They're thrown into the lake of fire, and eternal destruction is waiting for those whose names are not written in the book of life. And when we see that going on, boy, are we going to be glad that we were serving the Lord. Even though for this short amount of time, it was difficult, it was hard, we will be thankful to the Lord that He had shown himself to us, that we were able to receive him, walk before him, follow him through the hard times, through the difficulties, because in the judgment, it'll turn out much better for us. And so let's take Jeremiah chapter 4 to heart today. Let's allow it to cause us to be able to look at this world through the right type of lens. To understand that the way things are right now are not necessarily the way things will always be. And to remain faithful to the Lord, remain committed to him. And then we know that there's a promise that we will then have the glory, that the sons of God will be revealed, and we will live a glorious life before God. And then we can enjoy all the bliss of heaven, all the bliss of the new heavens and the new earth. And we'll be living the good life then. But for now, we just got to be faithful to the Lord and keep serving him. So let's think about that. With that, I do thank you guys for watching the video today. Hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.